East Coasters.
East Coasters. There you go. Hello. How are you guys doing? Welcome to round one of a double header with Podcasters Live. We are here at 12 o'clock early, kind of outside of our window, but I'm excited because the guest that we have today is going to be here to talk to you about your brand, talk to you about your brand story. What does that mean? What does that look like for you and your business? What does that look like for you and your podcast, for you as a content creator? One of the things that I kind of struggled with initially was understanding what I wanted my brand to stand for. So I reached out to our guest today, and she's going to talk a little bit more about kind of the strategy and thought process that goes into creating your brand. But before that, let's go ahead and hit the intro. All right, today we are going to be speaking with Miss Heather Roma. We're going to be talking a little bit about the brand story. Once again, as I said earlier, this is going to be a double header. So we actually have Miss Heather Roma today at 12 o'clock. And then at 7 o'clock tonight, we actually have Mr. Dr. Elo. So a double header for us over here at Podcasters Live. Hello, I'm Steve Worthy. I am your host of Podcasters Live, where we help podcasters and content creators create community and grow their authority through learning how to live stream. One of the things that we try to do is to bring on not just podcasters and content creators, but also people that are experts within their industry. So that way you can that way so you can learn a little bit more about what it takes to actually kind of grow your podcast, grow your brand, and also grow your influence. So today we have Miss Heather Roma. So last year, I actually met Heather and Lita. It is a Facebook group. And what it is, it's go live each and every day in April. So this was 2021. And one of the things that caught my attention was one of her posts. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because that post really impacted me and a lot of other people. And it actually created a really good relationship between her and myself. So without further ado, how are you doing today, Heather? Good to see you.
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, hey, I did a little intro, right? You could tell everybody a little bit more about yourself and the company that you have, and then a little bit about your background, because I want to talk about that script writing, because I think that's going to be a really key point that we talk about today.
All right. So I have some experience in screenwriting, and I am a certified reader, which means that I spent a few years deep diving into screenplays and reading them and giving feedback, giving analysis, deep dive analysis. So in doing that, I acquired a lot of knowledge on storytelling and story structure. And then it came time to start my own business, which was the plan all along. But I didn't really know what I wanted to offer. And I knew I didn't want to just write coverages all the time, because it's really, really a lot of work. It's a lot of reading, a lot of writing. And it just didn't feel like that was the thing, but I knew that I wanted to use that knowledge somehow to help other entrepreneurs like me. And so basically I floundered in my business for about 2 years trying to figure out a brand. Like, what was my niche? Who was I trying to reach? What could I offer? And so the struggle with branding was really real for me. And then, in just like how things develop, how life goes, connected with people and found a really awesome business coach. And we talked about storytelling in entrepreneurship. And it was just like all the light bulbs went off, all the bells and whistles. And I was just like, ding, 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 ding. When your like soul just like connects with an idea and you're just like, this is it, So I started doing a lot of research into how to use storytelling in business and in marketing and in branding. And with my graphic design experience that I've had, it seemed to just align with branding and helping people sort of tell their story and then use that story to create a visual version, which then becomes the brand for their business. And
Excellent.
so that's what Turning Scenes is.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, that same experience that you had with your, when you had the coach and the coach walked you through, kind of the idea about your concept was very similar to the feeling that I had as you and I had worked, on our concept, on our pillars for Worthy Retail U, our other business that we actually have going on. And then that just dovetails into a whole bunch of other different things too for me, from the podcast and everything. But I want to get into, to start with, kind of the foundation that got us connected. Right? You posted something. It was April 6th. I want to say. I think it was like the sixth day in Toledo, and you posted something, relative to, I don't want to be just another, or am I just another log line? And I was like, what in the world is a log line? What is he talking about? And then as you started to go into, the idea of what a log line was and how it relates to your background, I myself and everyone else just kind of got captivated. Can you talk a little bit about that? We're going to say hi to everybody here in a second, but I want to make sure that we kind of set the tone with that idea about what a log line is, because it'll set the foundation for everything else we talk about.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, that was just a live stream I did, and I think the prompts that we were given were. I went back and watched it because I forget everything ever. So I went back and watched it last night to kind of prepare for this because I knew it had resonated with you so much. And the prompts were, what are the two like things that you feel like hold you back, like your two biggest imposter syndrome things that hold you back. And it was really, it prompted me to do some journaling and to write about how my personal struggle with kind of hiding and only letting a version of myself out into the world,
Mm,
just like a glimpse of who I am, right? Just a small glimpse of who I am, because I want to be liked. I want people to like me. I want people to appreciate what I'm putting out into the world. And criticism is hard, and realizing that not everyone's going to like me. It's really, really hard. So I got to thinking about um, log lines. So a log line on a screenplay is a one or two line, really brief, concise description of what your script or the movie is about. So it's think about a screenplay is 100 to 110 pages long, and it's like,
mm,
how do you condense that down into one or two lines and get across what you need to get across so that the person you're telling that log line to is like, wow, I really need to read that. Like, there's an art to it. There's a craft to forming a log line to where you're specific enough that you're, really hooking that person. And so I got to thinking about what I'm putting out in the world.
mm,
And it struck me that, the log lines that you see, like if you go to Netflix or Amazon or, wherever you stream, they have a little write up about what the show or the movie is about. And I'm always frustrated by those because they're so general that you really don't get a sense of what that movie or what that show is going to be about. Like, they give you such general information that I just scroll to the next thing because I'm like, they're not really telling me what it's about, who's about it, who's in it, what's their journey, what's the
mm,
conflict. They're not really giving you that because they want everyone to watch it. But the problem is,
mm,
everyone who watches it isn't necessarily going to like that movie or that show because it's not what it was presented to be. So it's the same with us in
mm,
our lives and what we put out in the world. Like, I found that I was putting just general a general version of myself out there that felt safe,
mm,
right? But really, it's like when you open up and you become vulnerable and you find bravery enough to really tell your story and tell, not every like gory detail of the stuff that's
right.
like TMI, but like, what have you been through? Like, what struggles have you had? People relate to that and people connect with that. And if you're only showing like a general sort of facade of who you are,
Mm,
there's no connection in that. People are going to swipe away, because it doesn't establish that connection and that relatability.
Oh gosh, there's so much into that we're going to delve into those things real quick in here in a second. But I want to just say hello to everyone. Hello, what's going on, troublemaker extraordinaire, Miss Cher Jones, counting down to learning something. She doesn't like countdown timers, so that was a plug. That was a dig at my countdown timer, so that's okay. What's going on? What's going on, Mr. Hicks? How are you doing? Good to see you here. And Mommy Lala's here. Hey, Steve James is here. Hello, good to see you. And then she says, of course, hello, Heather. And then, hey, Carmelita, how are you doing? The struggle with branding is real for all of us. Yep, greetings to all. Agreed. We're going to talk a little bit about that too, in some more detail. And then what's going on, Boston? Don MTB, good to see you here. And then Black Podcasters Association, thank you, sir, for stopping in. I appreciate that. All right. The craft of a log line. I really like how you frame that, Heather. Yes. Oh, I'll tell you what, we are going to get into this here in a second because it really resonated with me. It's so true. You don't connect, people forget. That's right. If you don't connect, people forget. All right. So um you just poured out so much in there because you talked about being safe. You talked about everyone everyone watches it. Talk about Netflix because the general kind of topic or line that they actually have in there, and then you putting what you're putting out to the world. How did you kind of get past that? Because one of the things that I saw in, after you actually put that video out there, and we're going to get into some of the things, guys, please, we're just setting the tone. What I saw was this kind of like becoming of Heather. Did you think that, like, when you wrote that or put that video out there, because, did you think that it would resonate with so many different people, or was just like, this is just what I'm saying? And, once you started being vulnerable, next thing you know, you got now you're on Podcasters Live with me, man, talking about it.
No, I had no idea. I was just trying to get through the challenge. I'd never gone live until that challenge, and so it was my, I guess, sixth time ever going live. And thankfully, like, the vibe of that group is just really safe, and it really encourages you to really dig deep instead of just rattling off some answers. Like, it encourages you to really dig deep and um, think about what's the real root of your imposter syndrome, things like that, which isn't easy to do. But I don't know where the bravery came from to do that. I think it's just feeling safe in the group and seeing other people do that. It's kind of infectious in a way when you see other people opening up. It's like, that I could do that. Maybe I could do that, and it just comes with practice. And you just start with smaller things, I think, and then work your way up to the bigger stuff, and it gets easier. And then there's so much support. I mean, I got such overwhelming responses from people that it was just really encouraging, and I was like, I can do this. So
Yeah. So how has that sort of changed, the trajectory of where you were with kind of telling your story to where you are right now, and then how's that transition into you helping other people such as myself kind of work through some of their, you know, um, not just so much imposter syndrome, but the lack of like telling a concise story, or niching down into like who you are instead of just being a generalist.
yeah, I think the difference that it made for me is the content that I was putting out on, like, my Instagram and Facebook and things, were all just it was just designs with information on it. Like, I wasn't including myself anywhere. I didn't have pictures really of myself. I didn't have video of myself at all, and wasn't going live. It was just information. And
Mm,
when you leave yourself
mm,
out, like, that leaves a big connection gap. So after practicing going live and getting comfortable, and having the community that came out of that, of support, it just made it so much easier to include myself in my brand, which is a huge part of your brand. If you're leaving yourself out, then your brand is just not going to be doing its job. So yeah, I think it helps so much to write your story first. Like, I feel
Mm,
like it's absolutely essential to get it solidified in your own mind. Like, who am I talking to? If I'm going to go live, who am I talking to? Because you can't address everyone in the world. You have
correct.
to address your niche, And if you haven't written that out and really brainstormed what that niche is, you're just kind of shooting in the dark. So
Excellent.
really, it really helps you solidify in your own mind who you're talking to, what it is that you're providing them, how are they feeling right now. It's a big piece of that,
Mm,
address the feelings, and then you can really address your niche, and they will connect with you because they'll know you're talking to them.
agreed. 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 So we're going to get into that. I just want to make sure we're not being remiss here. Heather's dropping some nuggets right out the gate. I know, right? I know, I know, right? I didn't even we didn't get it. We didn't even get that was question number one. Um,
They're just chicken nuggets, though, not gold nuggets. They're just chicken nuggets.
we got the little 5 piece, 10 piece. We're going on right now.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. As Corby says, and that's sometimes a struggle. How vulnerable should you be? How vulnerable should you be? And guys, if you have a question, please go ahead and make sure you put it in the put. You don't have to put a Q in front of it. I'm not that big, so I can figure out if it's a question or not. But I do want to actually. This kind of goes into a little bit. Well, this comment from Scorpion. And that's sometimes a struggle. How vulnerable should you be? Right. So you start, when you're working with clients and you're talking to them about, kind of their story and who they are, right? I think probably one of the hesitations that a lot of people may have is like, okay, well, how much should I actually say about myself? Like, what does that look like? And right. And how can I trust that people won't take what I say and like use it against me or like that'll push them away? Right. So Scorpion raises a great point. What has
Mhm.
been some of the things that you've actually been able to help people with from understanding the measure of vulnerability that they probably need to share with their audience?
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I think it depends on what your business is or what your channel is, and who you're targeting, and what it is that you're trying to, what ways that you're trying to help, right? So if you write all of that out in your story, then you can stay on brand with your vulnerability, right? So if I just start randomly talking about, I was in the Air Force, and there were struggles that I went through when I was in the Air Force. They don't really have much to do with branding, if anything. Yeah, it's part of my story, but it's not really related in a way that's going to connect with that person that I'm trying to get to come into my workshop and write their story and build their brand. You know what I mean? So if you have your story written and it's clear in your mind, then you can focus your vulnerability on issues that relate to your content. So if you have, if your content is more related to um, like self care and healing and things like that, it lends itself to more vulnerability because those are really personal issues. So you might want to open up more in those types of things to attract the kind of people that community that you want to build. Um, if your content is more like, I don't know, tech, live streaming tech or something like that, then you don't have to get vulnerable necessarily about, some family issue, or, you know what I mean? You want to stay on brand and on niche with your vulnerability, if that helps.
Agreed, agreed. And I think, and I would also think that maybe vulnerability is, it's iterative, right? Because because the more comfortable I think that you become with yourself, right? Whether it's on screen or whether it's on camera or whether it's recording a podcast or creating content, I would think that the more you kind of understand yourself, the more I think safe you would feel about kind of sharing a little bit more of your story to the world. Would you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely do. It's definitely important to also consider where you are in terms of if you're 100% virtual, like if you're on a YouTube channel where anyone and everyone can see it, or if you're in a private group. I mean, that's a huge factor in how how much you can or should open up, because you don't want to give personal details about your life to everyone in the world. So
That's
yeah, I
right.
definitely think to consider where and who you're talking to. If you're doing an email to just the people on your email list, that you may have some more safety there, than if you were, you know, doing like a live on somebody's live or a podcast where everyone and anyone could hear it.
That's true. That's true. So Carmelita says, "Hey, becoming Heather, you should have you should have wrote that book before Michelle Obama did. You still can.
Oh,
You still
that
can, right? I
yes,
mean,
that would be quite the book. That would be quite the book.
you still can do that." And then Roy says, "Hello, everyone. How are you doing today, sir? Appreciate you." Yes, I really dislike going live. But Scorpion, you actually did really well. So Scorpion was part of the impetus of me actually starting Podcasters Live. I think you know this. I don't know if you do. If you don't, I'm going to let you know this right now, because I had been with a group of other podcasters for a while, and we were just meeting with each other. And I was like, this should be a podcast. This should be a podcast. And I was just thinking about it. And then last year, September 30th, on International Podcast Day, Scorpion and Walter Gaynor and we actually went live for International Podcast Day. And I just loved it. It was just awesome. And all we were doing was talking about podcasting. Soon as I hit end show, Podcasters Live was started. So even though you dislike going live, Scorpion, you were a big part of Podcasters Live. So just want to make sure you get that. Give you
Mhm.
your props. What's going on, Ash? Well, dude, listen to me. I appreciate that. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the love. And I need that watch time hours. And then Ash says, love that advice. People can overshare outside. Ooh, that's a good one too. Outside of their niche. Outside of their niche. Great tip. Stay on brand and align your niche for our levels of vulnerability. Agreed. Oh, you say you used to. So Scorpio says she used to dislike going live. You've learned to embrace it. You should, because right, because you'll be dropping some knowledge as well too. And International Podcast Day is my birthday. Oh, September 30th. Thank you. Is you want a gift now, Ash? Is that what this is? You
Milk it, of
That's right.
course.
This is in perpetuity, right? Everybody will know that Ash's birthday is on September 30th as well, too. All right, so I want to get into this whole idea of creating a brand story, because one of the things that we talked about, we kind of set the tone with kind of understanding what a log line is, and then your movement into being a brand strategist and helping people kind of discover their brand story based off of what you have personally experienced, right? But you have a course that I took, and it was amazing. And we sat down for, I don't know, about like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I don't know, it was a while. And we it was painful, man. Because you were like the school teacher, like, no, Steve, no, da, 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 da. And you just kept pushing me, and you kept pushing me to go deeper and go deeper. And so
There
I
were
would
no rulers involved.
there
I was not snapping any knuckles.
virtually you were virtually virtually you were. So without giving too much away, because of course we want people to be able to go to your site and actually sign up and help them, and for you to help them with that process. But can you just kind of, because I know your breakdown actually kind of goes into your screenwriting background. Can you kind of give like maybe a high level of like the first one or two, and then we can go to each one?
Sure. I'm like a Professor McGonagall, I'm like strict on the outside, but I'm warm and squishy on the inside. Yeah, so basically, the workshop is called Cinematic Story Brand. And at first, I didn't call it that. And I got a lot of advice to really lean into my niche and my background, which was in screenwriting. So I really leaned into that and coming up with a format for writing your entrepreneurial story that uses the most basic screenwriting structure, which is three acts. There's a lot of other ways you can write screenplays, but the simplest one to break down in terms of telling your brand story is a three-act structure. So basically, you in your first act, it's where it's the setup, right? You introduce your main character, your protagonist, which is your client, not you, but it's actually your client. And then in a movie, it's like the situation or the struggle, the conflict is presented in that first act, and that's kind of what hooks the audience in. And in case of business, we want to hook in our ideal client in that first act. So we talk about how they feel because of the struggles that they're having right now, and break down who they are in terms of a niche. And then in the second act, it's where the plot thickens, and a lot of the conflicts and the details come in. So in structuring it this way, we introduce the guru of the story, which is you. You're the Mr. Miyagi, you're the Yoda,
Yoda, yeah.
the Dumbledore, fill in your favorite guru. And we tell a little bit of your origin story, if you will, to bring some sort of credibility into the story. How did you, and it's not like a resume, like you have to have college education and all these bullets, not like that, but just like in general, how did you get to this part in your story where you're able to you learned some things and grew and figured some things out, and now are able to offer that as a service or a product for other people to help them on their journey. And then a little bit about the details about what your plan is for helping people.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
then the third act is the big culmination, right? The climax of action. And so we lay out in our story, we lay out our calls to action. So all the different things that people can do to join your community, subscribe to your newsletter, sign up for your YouTube channel or podcast or your course or membership, whatever those things are, those like clickable things, like sign up things, calls to action. And then the resolution of the story comes in where you talk about how they're going to feel afterward. So we can contrast the struggles and the feeling, whatever the feelings are resulting from what their pain points are. We contrast that with how they're going to feel afterward.
Excellent. And I'm going to go to number one here in a second, but that last part that you just said, how they feel after our sessions, and I was able to work through some stuff. One of the things I implemented in my podcast was this kind of how do they feel, or how should they feel after they implement something. I call it like the North Star effect, if you will. So, hey, if you do what we just spoke about, these are some of the traits that or skills that you will probably learn after you implement something like that. And I got to tell you what, I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on that, because the tendency sometimes, especially in the podcast, you just disseminate information, but you don't give anybody the actual kind of example of what things could actually look like if you were to do this. And also, well, if you don't do this, this may happen as well too. So just wanted to give you some kudos, on that last piece, because it actually helped me as I was going through this process from a podcast standpoint. So I would almost hazard a guess that, so for number one, we talked about the main character being the client and telling the problem. So this was the hardest part for me, I think, after, when we connected, was trying to try to identify the client and their problem. Because the tendency, I believe, is that we are so connected to our baby, our brand, or what we think should actually occur. And that may sometimes be opposite of what the actual client will need. How do you help people kind of break through that barrier and almost kind of like, have an out of body experience to be able to see their brand or themselves, from the outside, and kind of helping them understand
Yeah.
and kind of delve a little deeper?
Yeah. Well, it may not be true for everybody, but I've found that a large percentage of the people, your client is you a couple of years ago,
Oh, you got to say that again. You got to say that again. You got to say that again. Go ahead.
Yeah, I find that for a large percentage of people, your client is you where you were, just rewind a few years. So before you went on this journey and figured out all these solutions, like we learned the hard way so that we can help people figure it out in an easier way, right? So just rewind and think about how you felt. What were the questions that you had before you figured this out? What were you looking for? What did you search on YouTube? what were your pain points and how did that make you feel? When you didn't have a brand and you were trying to figure out what content to post that would reflect what was, how did that make you feel, right? Was it like hopeless? Was it like frustrated? Like really figuring out those words, because when you say that to someone and you say, are you frustrated because you
Mm,
can't figure out your brand? They're going to go, yeah, that's me. I feel that way. It's validating to have someone say that about how you feel right now.
yeah. I think one of the big issues too was that when I'm just going to keep using myself as an example because I went through this process, was that I think once I was able to get a little more clarity on, what my my avatar, if you will, just to use that, or the client, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
what their problems were, then it became the next step was, okay, well, what are the solutions that I provide? When you start to think about that idea or that word solutions, right? It can be elusive, but I think one of the things that you kind of helped me with was kind of get a little more concrete with what the solutions for that person can be. How do you help people kind of walk through that process? They've probably helped identify the solutions. They've identified the problem. They identified maybe their avatar. Now it's like, okay, because you can throw a lot of stuff out there, right? There are a lot of solutions, but then if you don't do it right, it may not be the right situation. So what are your thoughts on
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah, it can be challenging. I like to, and this is a big reason why I like to do a consultation before I do a workshop with people, because um, I'm not a business coach, right?
Hmm.
I'm not someone who's going to help you figure out what your offers are going to be. I'm someone who's going to help you with the verbiage and writing
Right.
out
Correct.
your offers in a way that's going to help people and help them know that what you're offering is for them, right? So if you haven't solidified, what it is that you can offer, I would encourage you to give that some more thought and think about, I'm thinking about what my business coach taught me. Like, what are your strengths? What have you struggled with, and what have you learned, and what are people always coming to you for
Mm-hmm.
advice and things like that, and how could you make that into something that you could monetize. So if you haven't figured out those pieces yet, I would say you're not quite ready for this workshop. But when you figure those out and you come up with kind of a plan of what you're going to be doing and what you're going to monetize, then I can help you write the story of how this all came to be in your life and what it is that you're offering, and why should people, why is it that people should join your community or subscribe to your channel or take your workshop, or those kind of things.
Yeah, I completely agree because one of the things we've been seeing, like working with clients, is that they are, um, they want to do so much, right? They want to connect with everybody. They want to push their content out there to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and Sherry Jones made a great point in our podcast a while ago. I won't say a while ago, about 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about niching down, because I am a firm believer in it. But one of the things that she said was like, well, if you can't niche, then don't niche, right? I mean, in the context of like, if you're not ready to your point around like maybe the problem and then the solution, well, maybe it's a matter of like continuing to plug away until you actually get there. I think the tendency sometimes, I'm not saying that you can't start, right? And that's what we talk to our clients a lot about too. It's not that you can't start, but I just think over time, if you really want your content to resonate with people, you have to get a little more concrete in what
Mm-hmm.
you're going after and the solutions that you're going to provide as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed. Yeah, and it's the biggest thing I say when people are don't really want to niche down because they want to help everybody, right? Um, just because you have a niche doesn't mean that you can't help someone outside of your niche, right? So if I'm
100% agree.
if I'm putting my content out there and I'm really laser focused on just people who are, getting businesses up and going, they're getting a channel up, they're getting a podcast up, and they really want to get brand recognition, right? And they really want to be able to tell them their story and include themselves, like we talked about. That's my niche. And so that person is who I'm talking to. Everything I put out, who I compose a social media post, that person is in the forefront of my mind. That's what having a niche message is. But if someone outside of that niche comes and says, yeah, I could use some help branding, you know, my business, and it's not like within my niche. Like one of the niche categories of entrepreneurs is service-based business for
Mm,
me.
mm-hmm.
I really like to hone in on people who are have kind of a service mind and who are really coming up with content that makes someone's life better, makes the world better in some way, right? Whatever that way is. They're not just in it to make a buck, or to start a business because they want to work from home. Like they really have an attitude of service.
Right,
And so
right,
that's the kind of person that I aim all my content to. But if someone outside of that is just trying to sell a product or, whatever that is, sure, I'm going to help them. I'm going to take their money. I'm going to take them through their workshop. Doesn't mean I can't because they're not within my niche. I can
right.
still help whoever might be attracted to what I'm offering outside my niche. So it doesn't limit you like you think it might limit you. It just really lets that target community know that your content is for them.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people within your niche. There's plenty of people, especially since we're so virtual nowadays. It's endless.
And I just completely agree with that, because one of the things that after we went through this workshop and I was able to have a lot more clarity with for Worthy Retail communication, culture, and career advancement, right, were the pillars that we came up with after that. Um, the skies opened up, the seas parted, and I the angels were singing, and all of that good stuff, because I had so much more clarity of what I wanted to go after. And the crazy part is that within that community that we have, there are probably about maybe 70%, 65% that are retail people. The other percent completely outside of retail. And they come for the clarity. I think they come for the leadership things. And so I think people mistake niching down, or niching down, you know, how we say it, niching down.
Niche.
I'm America. So we go say niche down. We go say niche down. We go say niche down. Right? Is that they think that they're gonna lose everybody. And I think Carmelita said it earlier. Well, you're not for everybody. So that's okay. You have to
Exactly.
you have to get past that too. So, just a
Exactly.
comment. Very good point about thinking about how we want people to feel after consuming our content, or using our products or service. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Though we're talking about a brand,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Yep.
yeah. So
And guess
we
what? One
go
of
for it.
one of my feeling words is clarity.
Yeah,
And you just said the clarity that I felt after going through your workshop was just amazing. And so that's what we want. We want to target in on how we want our client to feel when they're done with our program or workshop, whatever that thing is. And it's the opposite of how I felt during those 2 years of just wandering aimlessly out in the land of entrepreneurship, trying to figure out, what I was doing. I was so unclear about what I was offering. And because I was unclear about it, no one that was looking at my content had any clarity on what I was offering either. So opposite feeling words.
yeah. It's my first podcast after I took a long hiatus was the Worthy podcast. The hell, what is that about? Like, it was just like I had a pretty decent last name, and so I just said, let me just start it with the Worthy podcast, and I was super all over the place. And so, I felt like the content was okay, but the audience and the direction just weren't. And so, being able to kind of get that clarity first, right? So this is the first point, is to understand your clients, to understand their problem, and then try to create a solution for them. So let's go real quick. Cher says, say yes until you know it's a no. Get out when you know. Eventually, you'll reach your niche. Niche. There we go. All right. I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
I'm going to say niche.
Feedback's really, really important in finding your niche. Like take what other people are telling you about things that you're different things that you're trying, take what they're telling you and form that into your niche, because nobody can say it like someone, on the other side of things who's looking at what you're putting out and what you're doing. I've had a lot of feedback, and I was just like, wow, I didn't even realize, like the cinematic piece. I got a lot of
Yeah.
people that said really lean into that, because I wasn't clear about how I was structuring this story in a cinematic way. I wasn't clear about that at all in my messaging at first. So then I started really incorporating that, and I incorporated brand symbols like little scripts and screen,
Yeah.
film strips and things like that. And I really leaned into that with my graphics and imagery and symbols, and that helped with the clarity of what my message is.
Excellent. Excellent. So you got the client, identified them, identified the problem, and now act two. What does act two kind of entail for your brand story journey?
Yeah. So the act two is the guru of wisdom, which is you. And so that's where your background, your origin story comes into play. So if you tell a little bit about your background and what led you to the point where now you're able to offer something to others, it gives a credibility. It gives a trust factor that a lot of people leave this out. And think about all the ads you see that someone's offering on Facebook or YouTube or where Instagram, and they give a really great pitch, right? They've hired someone, you can tell it's really professionally done. The pitch is there. You're even convinced that you could really benefit from what they're offering. But like, what's the thing? Why don't you click on it? Like, what's the thing, the reason why you don't click on that offer? And it's like, for me, a lot of times it's because I don't know anything about this person. I
Mm,
don't know what their background is. I don't know what their motivation is. I don't know where my money, I don't feel secure that my money is going to go to a good place. Um, I just, there's just a big question mark around who is this person and why are they doing this?
right.
Our why is such a huge part of our brand. Like, people want to know why you're doing this thing. Why are you offering this service? And it's like, if you leave that part out of your brand story, it just leaves a big gap, and you're not
Mm.
going to have that connective piece and that trust.
It's interesting because when we put something out there, here's the issue: is that when we put something out there that we've kind of sat up, nights writing it out, right? Looking at competition, and this is going to be so dope. This is going to be awesome, and you're writing this thing out, and you present it out there to the world, and we just automatically think everybody's going to dig what we got to say. It's like you, they don't even know you. Like, and
Right.
so, but you put the stuff out there and you just assume that just because you think it's awesome and you think it's going to work, that it should work. And then you're not being really realistic with your expectations because you haven't even talked to anybody about it. And you just put it out there. And now you put yourself off as this guru and adding value. That's that word gets overused so much too. And I'm sorry, I can go on a whole tangent about that, but I really can. But I just think it's interesting that you were just talking about that. You didn't say it, you didn't say the word, but you said the word. It was almost implied, like there has to be some measure of trust associated
Yes.
with that. And so, how does someone, the guru, if you will, what's one of the things that that they're able to do to build trust and then also build a stronger why?
Yeah. Um, it's like with any relationship, right? If you don't know someone, you just start spending time together.
Mm,
And the more you spend time with that people or that community, the more they get to know you. Open up a bit, practice a little bit of vulnerability and authenticity, especially if you're fake. People are just going to know right away that you're just putting up a business image of yourself. Break that down, do the inner work to break all of that stuff down, and just be real, be
mm.
you, and just start spending time in your community, and people will get to know you like any relationship, and then that will automatically build trust.
Oh, I love the idea of spending time because the inference is that this is just going to take time for people to like understand and trust you. But we live in such a fast-paced society where we think that, one, just because we put it out and we put it on Instagram or on all these other social media platforms, that automatically gives us some measure of credibility, and it doesn't. And so this is for whoever's listening out there. It's going to take time for you to actually develop that level of trust where people actually want to spend money, or actually even listen to your podcast. We have so many podcasters that are out that I work with, that all they put the content out there, and then there's no structure or run a show. There's no brand story. There's no North Star for telling people what they can actually learn. And then they just expect everybody to listen to it, and then they stop doing their podcast because they're like, oh my gosh, podcasting sucks. Oh my gosh, videos, creating videos suck. Nobody looks at my video. But your expectations aren't aligned with with your why. Have you seen the clients that you have, and of course I was your best client, but I'm just going
Of
to say that,
course.
just going to throw that out there. So what what are some of the things or mistakes that you have seen people make, if you will, at this stage, within the journey?
Yeah. Um, Definitely the biggest one, and it's hard for people, but it's hiding, hiding behind your content, not putting yourself out there,
Mm,
is a big one. You are your brand. You are, your story is your brand. It's on my shirt because I believe it so much. You and the things that you've been through, that's your brand story right there. And if you leave yourself out of that, you're leaving a huge gap,
mhm,
and your brand is not going to be performing the way it's supposed to. um, we talked about niching.
mhm,
That's a big one. That's a big one. Niching, um, leaving your niche too broad, not focusing
mhm,
down like we talked about, or straying off of your niche. Like I see people who, when you get something going, you get an offer going, and you start making some money, and you start helping people, and you feel that satisfaction, you get like the entrepreneurial spirit, and you tend to like see everything as in terms of what else can I do that I can monetize? I can do this
mm,
thing, and I can do this thing. And it's like it lights a fire in you, and you just want to do all the things. But especially early on, until you've really achieved growth and success with your main niche, I highly recommend sticking within your niche for a while until you've seen success with that, and then maybe spread out to something else. Because if you start doing all these other not really related things, that's going to confuse your audience, and if they're confused, they're not going to buy.
yeah, but that's so boring, Heather. I want to do everything. I mean, seriously, like, I mean, I see Gary V doing a whole bunch of different things. I see, MKHBD on YouTube, Mr. Beast on YouTube. I see all these guys doing all this other stuff. Well, so why can't I?
Yeah, it well, when you get to that level, you can pretty much do anything, and you have such name recognition, that it's, whatever you attempt is going to have a measure of success. But and that doesn't mean you can't branch out a little, but as long as it's within your niche or really related to your niche, I would say, stick with that. Like, um, I'm going to be launching a YouTube channel that's really about graphic design, and using Canva to design, and making sure that your designs are on brand. That's what the focus of the channel is going to be,
Hmm.
and that's so closely related to what I do with telling the story and then turning that written story into visual form in future workshops. We turn the written story into visual form, and then
Mm,
form a brand, like a brand vibe, and we look at colors, and we look at fonts, and what all those things mean, and we pull the keywords out of your story and try to make a visual representation of that. And
mm,
then when you do all your designs, it's being pulled from your story. So it's, yes, I'm branching off and I'm doing a YouTube channel, but it's so closely related to my niche that it works. You know what I'm saying?
mm.
So yeah, I would just consider whether or not it detracts from the main thing that you're offering.
Completely. Oh, that's awesome. I want to talk about that here in a second too. So, but Cher says, Nugget, your why is a huge part of your brand. So true, Heather. Yep, the why is important. And Boston Don MTB says, "Thank you, Steve. On the word value, we have to come up with a new word." And then he says, "So this all
Nuggets.
works for
Nuggets will be
business."
our new word for
What was
value.
that? What is it? Nuggets?
Nuggets.
Nuggets. Man, I'm telling you, I had Heather on. She was just adding or dropping or serving so many nuggets. I think we we can't say dropping nuggets. We can't say adding nuggets. So
Please don't say I was doing that.
we have to say serving nuggets or something like that. Or cooking up nuggets. I don't know. We got to figure that one out. So this, so this all works for business and the potential to sell things. What I am wanting to do is just tell a story of a mountain biker and hope to bring others into the sport. Um, how do I work on my brand? That's a great question, right? Because he's talking about this works with business people, content creation, yada yada yada. But
Mhm.
dude, I just want to talk about mountain biking and bring more people into my community. Can you give them some words of wisdom?
Yeah. I mean, really, a brand is about connecting with an audience and about growing and establishing trust. And if you're just doing a channel and just want a wider audience, I mean, I really feel like telling storytelling is the key to growing a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like going through the steps of who's my community person that will be watching my channel, and what is it that they're interested in, what are they going to YouTube to search for, and can I provide answers to those questions for them so that they'll keep coming back. um, and so in a way it's just really similar. It's just growing a channel instead of growing an official business where you're selling something. But the same principle applies. I really feel like everyone is an entrepreneur that's a content creator. If whether you're podcasting or starting a channel, I feel like you're an entrepreneur in the sense that you have a brand. It might be a personal brand as opposed to a business brand, but it's still a brand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
feel like it all still applies.
Yeah, yeah. I would think, Boston, that you start to think about mountain biking and all of that. Is there a specific just a specific bike that you just use for mountain biking, right? Start talking about niching down and niching down, right? Is there a specific bike? Is there a specific trail, that you like to compete on, or that you like to go after? Is there a certain city? Is there a certain altitude? Right? Just think about the mountain biking. There's so many different avenues that you can kind of go down. I would think about what's the one aspect of mountain biking that you just can't live without, right? It could be the thrill. It could be getting up, cleaning that bike off afterwards after a big ride. So just think about it a little more granularly, and then also what problem are that you're trying to solve. So as we talked about, in Act One, right? What is the problem that most mountain bikers have, right? Is it gear? Is it the expense? Right? So think about all those different aspects as well too. So,
Hmm.
of course, Steve was your best client. That's right.
Of course.
That's Cheryl. That's Cheryl French. Hey, how are you doing, Cheryl? All the way over in the Netherlands. Where's Cheryl? Is she in the Netherlands? No, no, she's in Sweden. She's in
Sweden.
Sweden. She's
Yeah.
in Sweden. She's
Yeah.
in Sweden. Thank you for checking us out all the way from Sweden. I appreciate that. Um, cool. All right. So, the last act. The last act. This is call to action, resolutions. One of the things that honestly I've had to get better at doing, because I want to talk to the client, so I want to talk to their solution. I want to position myself as the guru and how I can help them. But
Hmm.
then the call to action piece, it gets kind of like lost in the sauce a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
help people understand the importance of Act Three and tying everything all together.
Yeah. For a long time, I had hangups about doing a call to action because it feels salesy. And the last thing I wanted to do was like always come around to here's how you can give me your money. I didn't want to feel like a used car salesman, slimy, salesy person. There's so much of that out there, and there's so much noise of everybody selling something out there. Um, and this is where I feel like telling your story, being relatable, being a bit vulnerable, and including your why is really, really important, because it lets people know that you're not just another sleazy person trying to make a buck, right? It lets them connect with you and relate to you and understand you in a way, like we talked about, building that trust. And by the time you get to the part where there is a call to action, they're gonna be hooked and wanting to know that information anyway. If they are your niche person, they will. Other people, doesn't matter. Just your niche matters. And by the time you get to the call to action part, they're already invested in your story and in you as a guru enough that it's not going to feel salesy. But it is a crucial part of the story. Otherwise, how are you going to get people into your workshop, or subscribing to your channel, or like it's kind of like a necessary evil, even though it's not evil. It's just part of the process, right? It's part of the process. If you want to know more, if you want to find out more information about my workshops, go to my website. It doesn't have to be pitchy or salesy.
Yeah, it should just be like a natural kind of outcropping of your conversation, that you've
Yeah.
actually had with somebody. So let's just take Don, Boston Don, for instance. Right, when you start thinking call to action, I think I think your whatever your niche is for mountain biking, I think that's an easy call to action. Hey, come to my channel, check out the my channel on specialized mountain bikes. That's all we
Yeah.
ride. We just
Yeah.
ride specialized mountain bikes. That's it. We don't, not nothing against any other ones, but this is what we focus in on. So this is why
Yeah.
you wanna come in there. You want to come to my channel as well too. So, all right. Well,
Yeah.
it is one of the things I did want to do before we left, because I do want to address the thing that's scrolling down at the bottom. I don't know if it's on this one or not, but I think it's on the one for you. When I asked you what are the three things that you loved, right? Um, you said avocados, Star Wars, and YouTube. So, what's the avocado thing?
It's just when they were talking about price hikes and
Oh, I,
supply chain issues and everything, it's like, do not mess with my avocados. I eat avocados every day, and there are certain things I can't have unless I have an avocado with it. So please do not disrupt the avocado supply chain. That's all I ask. Anything else, just not avocados.
the avocado supply chain. Yeah, we won't do that. We won't disrupt that. I'm gonna save Star Wars for last, because we can talk about that as well. But YouTube. So, one of the things you said that you love is YouTube.
Hmm.
What's your
It's
why YouTube?
it holds the answer to all of life's questions. You're just like a YouTube search away from pretty much any answer you need, right? What did we ever do before YouTube? My daughter, she's 9. She has no concept of life without YouTube as a search
That's so true.
option.
That's so true. That's so true. You are one. Did you say you are one? You are one. What did you say? Church away. YouTube church channel away from.
YouTube search, yes,
That's right.
right?
Oh, that's so. I know, right? I mean, it is very true, right? You know, a dishwasher breaks down, or you gotta change something. That's the first thing. I know it's the first thing I
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a video on this. There has to be. Oh my gosh. And then
Mm-hmm.
your love, dare I say, your, oh my god, obsession, which is a good, it sometimes has negative connotations, but I don't think that in this case it does, with Star Wars.
There's no other
uh
way to say it.
there's no other way to
It's an
say it. I can't even
obsession.
tap dance around that one. I can't even tap dance around that one. Yeah,
Appreciate you trying, but
I
just
know,
don't
right?
even try. Don't even bother.
My brother, and I'll let you get into this segment because I love Star Wars too. So my oldest brother Stan, he was in the military. He was a Marine, so he'd just be gone for the deployments and all this other stuff. And so as a kid growing up, Star Wars and Rocky were like our big things, and this was when movies would stay, in the movie theater for like a year
Mhm.
and a half, 2 years or whatever. And so every time he came back home to New York, he would take me and we would go see, like, I had to wait because I had to go see my brother Stan. And so for me, that's the nostalgic aspect of Star Wars, the the storyline and all of that stuff. So we have a mutual love for that. Where did your love and passion kind of come from a Star Wars standpoint?
Oh my goodness. I just, so I was born in 75. So I was born right in the thick of, the originals coming out and stuff. And I just remember, using sticks as lightsabers and just being like completely absorbed in the Star Wars
Yes,
world. I'm out
yes.
in the driveway in my corduroy hand-me-down jeans, and I mean, it was just like everything was about Star Wars. If you were going to go play, it was always like we're going to be Jedi, or it was just that it was so like immediately part of the culture of families. You know what I mean? It was just incredible. Um, and yeah, and just every time I would come back and watch the originals, it was just like they hold up. Like, there's some stuff that you kind of laugh about now because you can see the special effects and how they were and stuff,
Oh
but
yeah.
like the story holds up, the characters hold up, the comedy moments hold up, the just the plot, it's just the world, it all holds up so well. Every time I go back to them and watch them, I'm just completely absorbed, even though it's been hundreds of times and I know all the lines already. It's like it's so absorbing. I don't know. And it clearly, with the whole phenomenon that still is Star Wars, it
Mm,
resonates with a lot of people. So I
tons,
just I
tons.
just love it. I love it.
Well, I wanted to say that one for last because I think Star Wars is a huge brand, and I think everything that you spoke about, right? We start talking about all the different characters that are within Star Wars, and the gurus, of course, the Yodas and the Obi-Wans, and
Hmm.
all of that stuff, and then also just the call to action, if you will, is like, hey, yeah, you got to check this one out because the story isn't finished, and also the story is so deep, and there's breadth and depth. So you actually have to kind of go and make sure you check it out. So Heather,
Hmm.
where can everybody connect with you, at, and kind of get in contact with you as well?
Yeah, turningscenes.com. It's kind of a one-stop place for everything that I have. You can find my social media links there. You can find my email address there, turningscenes@gmail.com. And all the information about the workshops that I teach is there, as well as sign up links. You can even sign up for a consultation there if you're not quite sure if you're ready. So, yeah, check me out there.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Heather, I want to thank you so much for being here. Just hold off until the in agreement for a second while I kind of close this out. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Woo wee, woo wee. Oh my goodness. One of the things that we always want to do with Podcasters Live is to bring on experts to help you as a podcaster or a content creator with your journey, right? The goal is of us, of course, is to create community and help you grow your authority through live streaming. So we bring on people that can help you with that. Right. The other thing that we actually do individual and also some group coaching. If you want to, you can go to podcasterslive.com and go and check us out about our coaching. But you also can see upcoming guests that we actually have coming up on our show, like we have this evening at 7 o'clock. We actually have this gentleman. This gentleman is amazing, Mr. Dr. Elo, and we are going to be talking about live streaming on LinkedIn and how to grow to your audience with that platform as well. So don't miss us at 7 o'clock. It's going to be on all the different platforms as well. So I want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much for everybody with your questions and your comments. If you're looking at this on a replay, please don't hesitate to leave us a question or some thoughts around how this has helped you, how this has resonated with you, and what we can do from a Podcasters Live standpoint to help you grow your authority, grow your community through live streaming. Have a great day. God bless.